Okay, what should I review next? Just brainstorming some ideas here. Maybe I should check out my other reviews. Let's see. 1,049 views? I've barely even gone over 1,000. Maybe it's because all the videos are boring, difficult to understand, too long, and about topics that are generally not all that interesting or popular. Yeah, so it's definitely a topic. Sure, that's it. I just had to find something relevant, popular, and interesting. Alright, let's see. Presidential candidates? No, it's too political. Race issues? No, it's too intense. Celebrities? It's too pointless. Pokemon's still in the news. Pokemon Go? Lost several million users? No, it's still too popular for my taste, even if the game's been out for nearly 2 months. That's the right track, though. Pokemon something. Yes, perfect. It's about a topic that's popular, but the media is nostalgic, irrelevant, and generally pointless. Just my kind of style. I'll rank these original cards. It's perfect. All these cards, pieces of cardboard illustrated with animal and object variations, all combined into a luck-based game. A major part of my childhood. I could probably tell you most of their names, maybe some numbers, even powers without looking. When I think about the hours I spent on this game, I probably could have become proficient in physics, but instead, I know this basically useless information. But now it's time to put all that knowledge to good use. So, to go about the list, I'll rank and review them. This should be much more objective than the previous list because some cards are undeniably better than others, but how would one go about doing it? Let's see, but first I should actually explain the game. It's not that complicated, but this is still going to be a super basic explanation. So if you're looking for more of one, I recommend checking out detailed how to play videos or picking up that classic game on the Game Boy Color. So what happens is you play your basic Pokemon, then power it up with the appropriate type of energy card. Once you have your attack ready, you fire it off and damage or inflict a status ailment, just like the video game, until you knock out your opponent. Once you defeat 6 Pokemon and draw 6 prizes, cause them to run out of available Pokemon, or cause them to run out of cards, you win. And that's the absurdly basic rundown of it. Obviously, there are numerous more rules and strategies to employ, but it would take a whole video series to explain all that. So if you're still lost, look into those types of videos, if you want. That description should be fine to carry you through this series. And if you had these cards, you'll be fine. If you played the actual card game or the Game Boy game, you'll probably understand everything. In this series, I'll be looking at the first 3 sets of Pokemon cards, the base, jungle, and fossil. These include all 151 of the originals. I'll also give the card the benefit of a doubt, and include the better version in the ranking. So most know that Ghastly was probably the worst original card, but luckily you got a much better version in the fossil expansion, so that's what I'll be focusing on. So like I said, there are cards that are better than others. There are some undeniable facts and characteristics that make cards superior to one another, so let's go through them. HP, health points. The higher the better. It means you can survive longer, meaning you won't lose prizes so easily, so clearly having 120 HP is better than 30. Retreat cost. When you're battling, you have the opportunity to retreat or return your active card to the bench to avoid getting knocked out, switch to something more useful, or cure those status ailments. Unfortunately, it'll cost you energy, or a trainer if you have it, but I'm focusing on the energy aspect here. So having 0 energy retreat cost is better than 4. Resistance. It's the semi-opposite of weakness. Resistance protects you from certain types, so it's arguable that Diglett might be a worse card because there are a lot of Pokemon that have a fighting resistance, and going against one makes Diglett and all their low-damaging fighting types completely useless against those cards. However, there are also a lot more Pokemon that have a fighting weakness than, say, Fire, so in a way, it evens out a bit. Anyway, again, the point here is the opposite as before. Having resistance is better than having none. Attack power. Doing more damage is better than doing less, because you want to knock out the other Pokemon as quickly as possible. However, the next criteria directly correlates to it. This is talking about the broad sense, where doing 100 damage is most likely better than 10, given regularly similar circumstances that will be explained in the next category. Energy cost. This is a tricky one to connect and evaluate when you think about energy payoffs. How much value and energy cost are you getting for your attack? You're looking for the low energy cost attacks, basically. The less energy you need to attack, the better. Usually it's all about getting bang for your buck, so an attack that does 50 damage for 3 energies is better than an attack that needs 4. Cards that also have attacks that only require colorless with power-up are also a useful feature that I'll mention later on. Really, the basic conversion is 1 energy for 10 damage. Anything less than that ratio is horrible, and anything above is potentially better, usually. The way the game's designed for quick, easy takedowns, you want to find cards that cost little and do sizable outputs. There are cards that can destroy your 2-card energy output just by playing them. So cards like Charizard that do 100 damage but require a whopping 4 energy might not be that great when you consider that 4 energy power-up is going to take you 4 turns. And you have to discard 2 energy each time you fire it off. Energy is precious. You want to use as little as possible and get as much out of it as you can before it's gone. Number of attacks / Pokemon powers. The more writing the card has, generally the better it will be. Having 2 attacks is better than 1. Even if that attack is 99% useless, there still might be some obscure use for it in which having it at least offers some help. Same thing with Pokemon powers, which are usually passive attacks that offer aid to you in terms of a lot of variety, which I'll discuss in more detail given the specific nature when I talk about the card itself. It's hard to say if having a Pokemon power is better than a second attack, because in many cases, yes it is, especially since if possible, you can use both the Pokemon power and attack in the same turn, as well as being able to use it from the bench. But some Pokemon powers are surprisingly disappointing or worthless, so it all depends on the attack and power, which I'll discuss in more detail with the card reviews. Basic Pokemon. The only cards you're allowed to play directly are first stage or unevolvable Pokemon. Evolving your Pokemon is kind of a pain. Fortunately, there are a lot of ways to alleviate this hardship, so it's honestly not that much of a factor, but still, having a strong basic Pokemon that you can play directly from your hand without needing any extra cards is still objectively better than having a strong second stage because of the effort it takes to get it active. Status ailments. So instead of doing damage or only doing damage, you can also mess with your opponent. Paralysis, confusion, sleep, and poison are all obnoxious inflictors and can definitely do just as much devastation than simply damage. Just comparing them all, I'd say paralysis is the best as it has a 50% chance to halt your opponent from retreating or attacking and gives you a free turn. Confusion is also valuable, as your opponent has a 50% chance of doing 20 damage to themselves when they attack, but they have the option not to, and they can also retreat, but it requires a successful coin toss to do so, and they have to pay the cost regardless. Also, confusion, like paralysis, has a 50% chance of success. Poison is another destructive force and does 10 damage to your opponent after either you or them end a turn. Unfortunately, it's easy to cure with a simple retreat, but if they're unable to do that, the damage can add up, and most cards have a 50% chance of success as well. There are a few that poison automatically for more energy cost. Sleep is the least useful in my opinion, but it's mainly because of the cards that have it. Sometimes it automatically puts your opponent to sleep, causing them to be inactive and attacking and retreating, just like paralysis, but not all do, which means in general it's less reliable as it only has a 25% chance of causing inactivity as opposed to the 50% chance from paralysis, because the opponent gets to flip a coin each turn to wake up. So if the attack automatically puts the Pokemon to sleep, then it's just as valuable as paralysis. In all honesty, they're all useful to implement, but in order for this ranking to have structure, I need to decide the order of their utility, and unfortunately there are a lot of differing attacks that again, make it more difficult to choose. I'll mention these specifics on the cards themselves. Also, there are non-status based effects like lowering accuracy that again I'll mention on specific cards. So in conclusion, attacks that are identical in cost and damage, but inflict an effect or status that is superior or existent compared to the other one, and that one's better. So yes, it feels good to iron out the 100% undebatable objectives, but there's still room to choose and decide ranking order based on experience, judgment, and knowledge of these cards. For example, which card's better, Rattata or Diglett? Well, they have the same HP, but their attacks are different. Diglett has 2 and Rattata 1. Rattata's does 1 energy for 20 damage. Not bad, since Diglett has 10 for 1, but also a 2 for 30, so what's superior? Both have a resistance and no retreat cost, but Diglett is also super effective against cards, specifically Rattata, but it's also ineffective against flying types, so which one's better? It's a tough call, and on that, I'll answer in the ranking. So if you had enough of sunburn, dead battery, and fatigue, and just want to watch a guy in an orange ski mask ramble on about cards that are no longer in use, but have extreme nostalgic value, then this is the video series for you. In all honesty, this isn't meant to be taken all that seriously. It's just for enjoyment purposes and reliving and analyzing something that meant a lot to us as kids. Take it as you will. I suppose the strategies could be used for the Game Boy game, but that's already been written about and takes a different kind of approach than what I'm going for. I just enjoy listening, chatting about things I'm familiar with. That meant a lot to me. Even though I spent hundreds of dollars on these fancy pieces of cardboard, they still matter to me, and they hold a lot of memories I look forward to revisiting. So like, subscribe, and share. Predict which card you think is going to be #1, what's going to be last, what number your favorite's going to be out of 151. The first installment will be out shortly.